Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now essentially the end of November of 2022. We got a couple of days left for this month before we get into December, which is the build-up for shows like The Bad Batch Season 2, Mandalorian Season 3, both of which come out in January and of course February of next year. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing about the new universe between George, John, and Dave is that they are not only creating a lot of Star Wars Legends stories to come back into the current canon material, but they are also providing fans a lot of original stories that we have never seen before, that's going to be taken from a lot of rejected ideas and concepts by George way back when in the day. Of course, this has a lot to do with what he did not approve for Legends at the time in the 1990s and the 2000s. Now, with that being said, on top of all of this, we already know that the Star Wars Sequel Trilogy were really hit and miss. Some fans liked them, some fans just resented them. You know, I would go as far to say that The Force Awakens was entertaining, The Last Jedi was a failure, and The Rise of Skywalker was half and half. It had its moments, it had its bad moments, it tried to fix things here and there, but overall, it ended up being, you know, more or less, like damage control in some areas, at least to me. Now, with that being said and all, alright, everything related to Favreau and Filoni, their overall mission right now is to fix the franchise, to give fans exactly what they want to see on the big screen and at home on Disney+, and how they can really provide fans a better future for the Star Wars universe and where it's all heading. Now, with many new Star Wars TV shows currently in development by Disney and Lucasfilm, both John and Dave are getting ready to develop some new groundbreaking shows for the fans. Now, it's noted that just recently, however, in a recent interview with director J.J. Abrams, who was being questioned about his experience creating the Star Wars films, he didn't have the best things to say about the franchise. J.J. went on to state the following. So, the thing that really bothered me at the time was how Disney, and especially some of those over at Lucasfilm, were handling that trilogy. When I first signed on, I was directly told by Bob Iger that they had a thought-out plan for all three movies, and I figured, okay, great, that sounds perfect. I will do the first one and see how it goes. So I did The Force Awakens. I wanted to use Michael Arndt's stories, and they just wouldn't let me do it. This was something that I had serious issues with, and so Michael Arndt's stories had many scenes for Luke in Episode 7 at the time, and I wanted to do all of that since I grew up with Luke as one of my favorite characters. It was soul-crushing and consistently frustrating how it forced to only use him for roughly 60 seconds or so at the end of that movie. Now let me just stop here for a second. Now, this is another prime example of Disney essentially lying to its creators, alright? So, JJ is going to get into this in a second, but what Disney essentially did was they told JJ that, yeah, we have all three movies planned, sign on for the first one, and we'll put you on for the next two if you want to come back, basically giving him the choice there. So he didn't really sign a three-movie contract deal, he signed one, and he was going to move on to the next one originally, but he didn't. And he'll explain why in a second, but the thing about this is they told JJ that they had a thought-out plan for all three films, and they didn't. It was a complete lie. And you know what? Kathleen Kennedy did the same exact thing. You guys may recall that in a interview, I believe it was in 2019, right after The Rise of Skywalker released, she said that Palpatine was always in the cards right from the beginning in 2014 when they began work on The Force Awakens. She said that he was always in the cards. Then JJ stepped in about a week later and said, no, this was a last-minute decision, you know. They came to me at last minute to bring back Palpatine as a Hail Mary to really kind of do, you know, some fixing with killing off Snoke and stuff around those lines, right? And so, that right then and there shows you that, you know, Disney and some of those over at Lucasfilm, you know, they say things when they don't really mean what they say at all. And that's a big problem, and that's something that Chapek was fixing, and something that also, by the way, Favreau and Filoni are fixing currently over at Lucasfilm, and hopefully what Bob Iger picks up on Chapek's work, and which he will, I'm sure of. Now, on top of that, alright, he goes on to say, and as it turns out, they had falsely informed me that they had a plan for all 3 films. This is why I had no intentions at the time for coming back on episode 8. Well, now that makes sense. And gave my own excuses to the public at the time and to them. I just didn't want to deal with telling a whole story of Luke in which Luke was eventually going to die. Kathleen Kennedy wanted him to die, and this was a deal breaker for me. I was not going to be a part of that. But they got to Rian, who felt and wanted to send the character off in his death, and gave him the creative choice on how Luke was going to die. I think I could say I dodged a bullet on that film, and only came back for episode 9 due to the lack of creators wanting to work on that movie. And I love Star Wars, so I wanted to end things properly. Now, this is a very interesting thing, so as it turns out, not all that surprising, but Kathleen Kennedy is the one that she wanted Luke to die, but she gave the keys to Rian Johnson, somebody who also wanted Luke to die, on how he was gonna die. So Rian came up with that idea. So Kathleen Kennedy basically came up with the idea that Luke, yes, was gonna perish in The Last Jedi, but Rian came up with the idea of exactly how he was going to meet his demise on Ahch 2. Alright, so that's clear now. That is something that JJ put out there. And Rian wasn't forced to kill Luke. He agreed and wanted to kill him off in that movie. And you know what? That's where a lot of fans had issues, because it wasn't necessarily just killing Luke off. It wasn't just that, because let's face it, even George Lucas said in his early treatments, Luke was going to die at the end of his version of episode 9. Now, what they should have done was that they should have had, of course, a whole movie of Luke in The Force Awakens with Michael Arndt and or J.J. Abrams picking up on those stories, and at best, you could have then killed him off in a proper way at the end of The Last Jedi, where he's also in that movie properly for a very long time. That would have been more reasonable, and I think it would have dwindled down the amount of backlash significantly. Sure, fans would have still been unhappy, there's no doubt about that, but let's face it, even George was going to kill off Luke at the end of his version of the sequel trilogy. We're talking about the one, by the way, where Darth Maul is in there, Darth Talon, Leia's a Jedi Master, the Skywalker children are in there. Luke was supposed to die at the very end of episode 9 in George's treatments. So he was going to die all in all eventually, but it was how he died. Not just how he died, but when he died. Alright, think about this. We got The Force Awakens, everybody's waiting for Luke, he doesn't appear. He appears for 60 seconds, we have to wait 2 whole years. Then he's got his own movie, and doesn't do much, and then dies. That's why fans had an issue, alright? That's why a lot of fans had problems with The Last Jedi's, iteration of Luke Skywalker. So overall, let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.